Hey guys, what's going on? This is Josh from Spotted Euros. Behind me we have the ultimate Touareg battle. We've got a 2005 Volkswagen Touareg V8 and a 2009 Volkswagen Touareg TDI. In this video we will determine which one of these is better at towing, and we're putting them to the limits. We're maxing these Touaregs out and we're gonna see which one does better, so stay tuned. Okay, for those who are new to the channel, Spotted Euros, we're a used car dealership. We buy and sell cars, mostly Volkswagens. We do a lot of cool videos. We do a lot of Touareg videos. So Spotted Euros, our personal tow rig is this 2005 Volkswagen Touareg V8, 4.2 liter V8 equipped with the air suspension. So as you can see, even with this heavy load right here, the Touareg sits perfectly level. It levels out the ride every time. We use this Touareg all the time. We pick up and we haul around cars constantly, and this has been used by the dealership for a long time now. We've put a lot of towing miles. This basically only gets used to pull cars around, and it has done great. We love it, but recently we picked up a contender. We picked up this 2009 Volkswagen Touareg, and as I said before, the main difference here is it's the TDI. So the main difference between these two is obviously the engine, V8 versus TDI. But then also, as you can see right here, this Touareg unfortunately is not equipped with air suspension. The air suspension makes a big difference when towing. Not only does it level out the ride, but it's able to handle and control the weight a lot better just because of the air suspension and what it's able to do. So let's look at the load that we're pulling, and then we'll talk about exactly how we're going to do this. So right now the TDI is loaded up on the trailer. This trailer is an 18-foot car hauler trailer. It's a 16-foot flat deck with a 2-foot dovetail. It weighs anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 pounds. Now these Touaregs weigh about 5,000 to 5,500 pounds. So if you put that together, we're pretty much right at the towing capacity of these Touaregs. So these Touaregs have a 7,700 pound towing capacity, and like I said, with the trailer and the Touareg, we are right there. And we've made plenty of videos, Touareg videos. We've done quite a few towing videos on this Touareg right here, and then we also have some videos on this new TDI. So if you want more content, just go through some of our other videos, but then also hit subscribe so you see some of the newer stuff. Okay, so how this is gonna work out, we have a test that we've done quite a bit. We've used the same route for this for some towing tests for the V8, and then recently we did a lot lighter towing test for these two Touaregs with just a regular Jetta. So now we're maxing these things out, and how it's going to work is we're going to run the route with the V8 first. We're going to see how it goes. we're going to be testing 3 things. Getting on the on-ramp, so we'll be able to compare the acceleration of both of these getting on the on-ramp. We are going to be going up a decent size hill. It's really not that big, but big enough to where this V8 has to downshift. So we'll measure that and we'll be able to see side by side how these two do with such a heavy load. And then the last thing is we're going to compare the fuel economy at the end of the route. So like I said, it's not extremely far, it's not extremely long, but it will give us definitely a good idea. So first we will run it in the V8, we'll switch them, we'll put the V8 on the trailer, hook up the trailer to the TDI. Hopefully it doesn't sag too much in the back, but we'll switch the two and then we'll see how that goes. Now, I already do have a pretty good idea of how this V8 does with this type of load, or this exact load, because we picked this car up, this new Touareg up in Las Vegas and towed it back. So that's about a 5-hour ride, and it did pretty good on that trip. So it's actually really surprising how much weight these Touaregs can actually handle. This is maxing this Touareg out, and really it doesn't feel maxed out. The air suspension really does its job. It's able to absorb the bumps, it's able to level out the ride, and this Touareg really doesn't get thrown around too much. Right now we're kind of in the town, going through stoplights and stop signs and stuff, and this thing is great. It's got plenty of power to move this around. But okay, we're gonna get some gas, and then I'll get back to you guys when we are getting on the freeway, so we can shoot the acceleration and be able to compare the two. So stay tuned, guys. This is gonna be a good one, maxing these Touaregs out. Okay guys, we are on the freeway. We're going to do just an acceleration test up to 65 miles an hour. We don't really need to go much faster than that. So we're on the freeway. I reset the trip or the fuel economy gauge here, so we'll be able to compare the two. But like I said, it's surprising how well this V8 does maxed out. Getting on the freeway, having the power to move this around really is not a problem at all, and it's a smooth ride. Okay, we are coming up on the hill. Really, it's surprising how well this does. It's almost like these Touaregs could handle more weight than this, because it's no problem 65 down the freeway. It really even hasn't moved that much around. So we'll see how it does on this hill, and then we'll see how the TDI does later. Okay, so there's a little bit of an incline, and then it comes back downhill, and then it starts here. Now okay, we're dropping down quite a bit. Right at the sign, 55. We'll drop it down to 5th gear. Okay, so not too bad in the V8. We had to drop down to 4th gear. And then once it got into 4th gear, it was accelerating back up. It really couldn't, it didn't have the power in 5th gear, 6th gear. I think it even got down to like 50, 55 miles an hour. But in 4th gear, even going right up the hill, it was pulling it back up to the 70 miles an hour. Unfortunately, right at the top of the hill, there was some traffic, some trucks, so we had to slow down. Otherwise, this would have gone right up to 70, no problem. So we'll see how the TDI does. It just got off the freeway. Now we're getting back on. So we'll compare these two as well. Okay, back on the freeway. A look at our temps real quick. The coolant temperature always stays pretty much at right at 200. The oil temperature is what I've seen in these Touaregs kind of move around. So right now it's reading like 225. Not sure if you can see that. So as far as temperature goes with towing with this V8, the oil temperature will stay around 220, 215, 220, and maybe even like right now it's 225. But that's because we just climbed this hill and then we also just got onto the freeway. It will probably cool down just a little bit. So with all the towing that I've done with this, I've only seen this Touareg get hot one time. So on one of our big trips with the travel trailer, we were in Colorado and we were climbing this big mountain. I mean, it was like climbing pretty steep, probably, I don't know what the max grade is, but it was definitely steep for, you know, like a major highway. And we were climbing this for a good 30 minutes. And right at the end of the hill is where it started to get a little hot. Oil temperature, if I remember right, was getting up closer to 250, and the oil was definitely getting hot. But then what really made a difference, because the coolant temperature usually never changes, and that's linked with the transmission temperature as well. I believe it maybe runs through the transmission, maybe someone else knows, but I've had a gauge before where I can see the transmission temp and it's always the exact same as the coolant temp, so it must cool the transmission with the coolant as well. But maybe I could be wrong. But then at the top of the hill, the coolant temperature started to rise, so that got up. It didn't even get close to being real hot as far as the gauge goes, but it started to move towards the closer to the like 230 range. And so it was right at the top of the hill, so we just pulled over and let it idle for a little bit, and it brought the temperatures down. But with all the towing that I've done, that's really been the only time that I've seen this actually get hot or start to get hot. It's never overheated or anything like that. And we go through the desert and stuff, pretty high temperatures. Towing these cars is definitely not as hard as the travel trailers, but I never really see it fluctuate that much. Even as if we look back at the oil temperature now, it's actually back down to closer to 200 degrees. So even just after a couple of minutes, it's brought that oil temperature back down. Okay guys, we are back at our exit. So the final test was the fuel mileage, and this actually ended up pretty good. So ended up at 12.5. Now we're gonna switch the two. Now we're gonna see how the TDI does. Okay, we got the trailer all hooked up, and I wanted to check to see how much this is gonna sag. So let's take a measurement before. We already hooked up the trailer, so I probably brought it down just a little bit. But I'm mainly wondering how much, when we put on the Touareg, how much it's gonna sag down. So like I said, let's take a measurement now. Okay, so we're looking at, it's like 34 inches and a little bit. This side's like more of a fourth, the other side's an eighth, so like a little bit more than 34. So let's load up the Touareg and see how this goes. Okay, so there we go. It is loaded up, and it's definitely sagging a little bit. It's really not too bad. You see way worse all the time, but it's definitely pushed down in the back just a little bit more, and the Touareg's up there. Now, it's kind of cool. I always like this look. I aired out the suspension all the way, so this is beefy tires, but low to the ground. So as you can see, there's not a lot. We're almost tucking here. Let's take the measurement of the back and see how much it sagged down. Okay, so actually it didn't push it down that much more. It seems like the trailer itself actually did quite a bit initially, because it only went down about a ½ inch. So it's at 33.5, pretty much 33.5 both sides. So that's kind of interesting. So I'm gonna strap this this thing down, and then we can hit the road. We are loaded up. So here's what everything looks like. We got the Touareg, a little bit of a floor to lean to it, and then the Touareg here. This is my main issue. Now, maybe I shouldn't worry about it too much, because this is a lot heavier than anything that we usually pull around. You know, I always like the option to have, who knows, I might get another travel trailer in the future and pull stuff around. So this right here is always what I don't like, having the sag and not being able to level out the ride. Okay, so far so good. There's something about the sound of a diesel, hearing that turbo spooling up. Naturally aspirated V8 always sounds good. The other Touareg sounds good, but hearing a turbo diesel is definitely always fun. So right off the bat, I mean, we're driving the same roads as we did last time, so kind of this around town stop sign stuff feels very much the same. I mean, it feels like this diesel has a little bit more power and is able to kind of get up to speed a little bit more. But yeah, it definitely, I mean, definitely doesn't feel like it's having a hard time pulling this around. It definitely, the power's there. It definitely can pull this around. I do feel like I'm getting kind of tugged around and bounced around a little bit more than in the V8. Maybe just slightly, but maybe that's just the steel suspension that's just a little bit bouncier. So we're gonna get on the freeway. So first test is the acceleration on the on-ramp. So we'll be able to compare those two. Once we get on the freeway, I'll reset the trip, or I'll reset the fuel mileage. And then we'll see how that hill goes in this diesel. I imagine that we won't have to drop down to 4th gear. There we go. It looks pretty good, or it looked pretty good. The cruise didn't set, so let me get up to speed here. And then reset this. Okay, so I mean, plenty of power to get on the freeway. It's probably just a slightly faster, like it was in the last test, compared to the V8. But yeah, it feels good. Like I said, that turbo noise is so much fun. I love hearing the turbo diesel. Maybe even slightly more. I maybe like it just a little bit more than the V8, but maybe that's just because that's what I'm used to. So far this is just sticking right at 65, so it feels good. I mean, this TDI, this diesel, is definitely capable of pulling stuff around. So if you are wondering, you know, how well either one of these will tow, both of them tow really well, and I wouldn't hesitate in the slightest to get something, as long as you're planning on towing something in the weight range. I'll get back to you guys when we are at the bigger hill. All right, we are at the hill. Here we go. Hopefully the traffic doesn't mess us up, but we are going up the little hill at the beginning. We're locked in 6th gear. And it's slightly downhill at the start. actually pretty good. So at this point, this sign here with the V8, we drop down to 5th gear. Okay, we are slowing down to 60 miles an hour. Here's this sign again. I believe that's where we drop down to 4th gear. But I don't even think we need to downshift into 5th on this one. Here's this bridge. We are at probably 64, 63. Still in 6th gear. Have not touched it. Here we're getting to the top. And that's 65. Top of the hill. Okay, that's pretty crazy. That's definitely a huge difference. I mean, when we were pulling the Jetta on the last test or the last video, you know, the diesel was able to stay in 6th gear, whereas the V8 dropped down into 5th gear. But when we bump up the weight, it's interesting to see the V8 kind of fall back and have a bigger problem. Whereas this diesel, I mean, it slowed down, maybe at the most it got down to 60 miles an hour, but still in 6th gear. No need to downshift into 5th gear. This is definitely pretty cool. You definitely can see the difference there between the two, the V8 and the TDI here. Just the diesel and the torque on this just is able to pull right through and maintain that speed. So like I said, if you can do a long distance tow and do a pretty big trip and literally not even have to think about it, that makes a pretty big difference. Definitely for me, because like I said before, in the V8 I'm constantly watching and constantly having to downshift and move stuff around. As you see, even on a hill like that, it's a decent, you know, decent hill, but nothing big for sure. So even in that situation where the V8 has to drop down all the way to 4th gear, I mean, in 4th gear it was accelerating up the hill, so it's not like it was a big deal. But it's still, I mean, even in 5th gear, wasn't really able to maintain the speed. It got even down to, we'll have to see the footage, because I think it got down even closer to 50 miles an hour, whereas this, the slowest it got was maybe 60. So here we are getting on the freeway, so let's take a look at that. And we're in 6th gear. Temperatures are pretty much the same. We might be slightly lower. The oil temperature in this might be slightly lower. We're probably looking more at like 215, 210. Coolant's gonna stay pretty much the same. So let's ride this home. Right now the average is 14.9 miles per gallon. So we'll see where we end up. I'll catch in with you guys at the end of the run. Okay, we are at the exit. So the final number 18.3. Really solid. With the Jetta, we ended up at 19, so really not even that much of a difference, 0.7 miles. The V8 was down a mile, and then the TDI is only 0.7, so that's pretty good. Now, this thing feels good. Like around town, I felt like I kind of was getting pulled around a little bit, but on the freeway, this definitely, you know, even at this weight, felt great. You could definitely feel confident. It doesn't feel too heavy. It doesn't feel at the limit. It definitely feels like this can handle it. So this TDI, it's definitely a contender. Being able to pull this so well, being able to get better fuel economy is kind of a big deal. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. This was a fun video. We'll definitely be doing more towing videos. There's a decent size canyon and road kind of close to me, and so I think we'll take this TDI up that. That's definitely a big grade and a decent size hill, so we'll see how it does there. Here, I mean, 6th gear the whole time, you know, pegged at 65. It was definitely a good run for the TDI, even pulling the big tow rig back there. Doesn't have a problem. So thanks guys, thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and we'll see you later.